right, welcome. You have arrived at the AARP Massachusetts HomeFit offering, and we are going to be starting up momentarily as we see our numbers go up in terms of participants. So another 10 or 15 seconds and we'll get started with the opening remarks and then move on to our speaker for today. So welcome to everyone from around the country. Good afternoon to some of you, good midday to some of you. If we have anybody from Hawaii, let us know so that we can be jealous. But please let us know in chat where you're sitting right now so that we know how we're covering the country with this webinar. And this HomeFit webinar is part of our series for caregivers that we're offering this month. AARP Massachusetts always does a caregiving series, usually twice a year. And this series ends next week with our final offering that is also always very popular, which is downsizing and decluttering. Whether you are a caregiver or just wanting to downsize and declutter your own home, you'll walk away with some useful tips. So it'll be same time next Thursday. And to check out all of the upcoming events from AARP Massachusetts, you can go to aarp.org/MA events. So as you know, AARP maintains a deep focus on health and financial security and also personal fulfillment for people 50 and over and their families. And hopefully you find that reflected in our offerings and resources and in our advocacy. And right now in every state and all the way to the United States Capitol, AARP is advocating for issues that affect you most. And we're fighting to protect your hard-earned Medicare and Social Security benefits. And we're urging Congress to lower prescription drug prices, support family caregivers, and to stop scams and shut down fraud. And we think we're making a big difference. The AARP is making a big difference, and we're taking on big pharma, and we're winning. Medicare is now able to negotiate lower drug prices on some prescription drugs, and insulin copays are capped at $35 a month. We're also fighting any proposed cuts to Social Security. So you've worked hard for your retirement. It's your money, and you deserve to keep every cent of it. We'll keep fighting to protect your interests here in Massachusetts and all the way across the country. Now, we're passionate about Social Security, and AARP is also passionate about supporting family caregivers. Caregiving is an issue that does not get nearly the recognition or support that it deserves. Even though there are 48 million family caregivers and friends and family help their loved ones stay in their homes as they age, rather than being forced into costly nursing homes. So despite their importance, caregivers face many challenges, and some of you in the audience may know this from firsthand experience. There's emotional stress, there's physical strain, there's financial loss. And do you know that caregivers spend about $7,000 a year out of their own pockets to help care for a loved one? And almost half of all caregivers have to leave the workforce or reduce hours at work to make time for their caregiving responsibilities. So that's why during this election year, and frankly all the time, but especially during this election year, we're making sure that candidates and elected leaders, regardless of party, offer solutions for supporting family caregivers and also protecting our hard-earned Social Security. So we're focusing on those two issues during this election season. Voters 50 plus are the country's strongest voting bloc. You probably know this. We must raise our voices and tell candidates to offer solutions to the issues that matter to us and our families. And we need committed voters, especially 50 plus voters, who will inform candidates about the everyday challenges we're facing. So you'll want to bookmark the AARP Massachusetts state page. That's aarp.org/MA, where we post about all of our events, our wins, and our calls to action. Wherever you are, you can find your local state office by going to aarp.org/local, and this will help you stay informed. So for this webinar, as you think of questions that you want to ask our speaker today, as is always the case, there's a Q&A section. And we will get to as many of your questions as possible before the hour is up. Chat is also obviously open for you to make any comments to other people in the session. And after 3 business days, I will be sending out the recording, and slides will be sent out to you as well. And of course, there'll be a brief survey so that we know how we did with you. So now on to introducing our speaker. Andrea Cordes has been with AARP for 10 years as a volunteer, and I can hardly believe it's been that long. She's a certified occupational therapist for the last 20 years. She's worked in a variety of settings, including skilled nursing, inpatient rehab, home health, inpatient psych, community-based mental health, and outpatient. And she's taught in a Master's of OT program, Master's of Occupational Therapy program, focusing on mental health, neurological disorders, and has also taught in a Master's of OT program, focusing on mental health, neurological disorders, and geriatrics. In addition to her associate's degree in occupational therapy, she has a baccalaureate degree in health science and a master's in higher education. She's also, as though she needed more, yes, there is more. She's also a trauma-informed yoga instructor and a Tai Chi instructor. And she's always had a passion for working with and empowering older adults through her career. She has been a CarFit technician. CarFit is a program that I'll put in chat so you can learn more about it. And she's also an event coordinator for CarFit. And for the past 10 years, she's also volunteered with us, as I said before, teaching these HomeFit webinars and in-person classes, and also Disrupt Aging in the Classroom, another AARP offering. So she's also continuing her work in empowering older adults in her current employment as the training and education manager for the Massachusetts Councils on Aging. Whew. So I don't know where you find time to sleep. I've always wondered that. So let's get started with today's webinar, and hand it over to you, Andrea. I'll be fielding the questions and handing them over to you when you're done with the presentation. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kara. So yes, my name is Andrea Cordes, and I am a volunteer with AARP. And tonight, or this afternoon, whenever time it might be, I'm going to be talking about some ways to make your home fit. So to start, we're going to kind of reflect on what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word home. You can drop it in the chat if you like. You can, think about just words that come to mind when you think of home. I will share a few that often come up in this presentation. A lot of people say comfort, safety, family, the place where I feel safe. Thank you. So it's whatever word feels like home to you. Safe, exactly. A lot of people are saying that. Support, I love that one too. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts, and you can continue to do that in the chat. So for many of us, it is those personal touches that we make that change a house into a home. So it's our memories, that feeling of comfort, support, like you all said, family photos, good times, stories that you remember, a place to feel calm and secure. So secure, a lot of people said safety in the chat. So those kind of go together, right? And it's understandable that many of us wish to stay in our homes as we age. So that is going to be kind of the theme of our presentation. So we're going to go ahead and go through the goals of our presentation. All right, so this presentation is designed to introduce you to the HomeFit and the HomeFit Guide. The HomeFit Guide is available online, and perhaps Kara can drop that in the chat. The link does come up later in the presentation, but it might be nice to have the link in the chat as well. So the HomeFit Guide is a fantastic resource. You can, like I said, see it online. It is also available by mail. And it guides you through some home modifications that you can kind of go through yourself, like little checklists. It's a very thorough and comprehensive guide. So by the end of this presentation, you're going to be able to reference that guide and start working on your own home. So specifically, you're going to be able to, number one, recognize key home modifications. Number two, apply some DIY, do-it-yourself type of fixes to make the spaces safer and more livable. And the third thing is going to be to plan for some of those more expensive changes to a residence that would allow you more of a lifelong occupancy. So let's check out our agenda. Okay, so we are going to cover modifications from all parts of the home. So entrances, exits, the kitchen, the living room, hallways, stairways, bedroom, bathroom, lighting and electrical. So all the things that you can think of that go on in your home. And you're going to receive lots of good information about home modifications. Some are going to be very simple and inexpensive little DIY adjustments. And we're going to go all the way up to more complex renovations that would require a professional and might be a little more costly. So the HomeFit Your Home handout, that can kind of act as your reference every step of the way. So before we begin, like Kara mentioned, you are going to be able to put your questions in either the Q&A or the chat. We'll try to answer, like she said, as many as possible. We'll get as many as we can throughout the presentation. But we did, we want to keep this a judgment-free zone. So please, keep comments a little more on the general side rather than very specific to your house. And we're going to share the floor so everyone has an opportunity to ask questions. And yeah, so let's get our home fit. Okay, so research shows that home modifications, even small ones, can actually reduce the need for costly medical care and increase livability and enhance independence. These updates can result in a lifetime of living safely and comfortably in the home that you love. So even small little changes can make a huge difference in your life. This slide is always an eye-opener for folks. The modifications that we're going to talk about today are going to vary in cost and difficulty level. But when you consider each month how much all of these other costs add up, the cost of not staying in your home really is far greater than the cost of staying in your home. So I'm going to give you numbers nationally because I know we're from a couple of different places throughout the country. And these are from the Genworth report. You can look those up and see your own specific state. And sometimes even it can break down into more specific regions of the state to get a better picture of what it would cost to not stay in your home. So a private duty home health aide, that's somebody who is coming in to kind of care for you. Something like 30 hours a week is the average that they have. That's going to cost about $6,292 a month. And that's the national average again. Adult daycare, so a site that is outside of your home that will usually be open from, say, 9 to 2, 9 to 3 sometimes. Those are going to cost about $2,058 a month. Again, national average. Assisted living costs, so those vary very greatly throughout the country and even throughout different parts of the state. So the national average for a month at an assisted living is $5,350 a month. I will share that in Massachusetts, the average for the whole state is almost $2,000 more than that per month. So thinking about, these national averages might be a little bit different in your area. And then we move down to nursing home. So nursing home is that highest level of skilled care where, you are receiving nursing care and CNAs are helping you with all of your activities of daily living. You really need that 24-hour care. To stay in a semi-private room where you have a roommate, that would cost you nationally average about $8,669 a month. And a private room is going to be about, $13,000 a month. So these prices are pretty high when you consider that maybe you can make some changes in your own home that are cheaper and stay in your house for longer. So we're going to look at the trusted handout that you're going to be able to use throughout this process. So this is the Your Home handout. It's just really a checklist to keep track of your home modifications. And there's also plenty of space for you to write down any additional notes that you have. You might want to put the date that you met with a contractor, something like that. The URL at the bottom of the handout will take you directly to the HomeFit guide. And the Your Home handout is a preview of all the steps that you can take to make your home more livable. The HomeFit guide itself has over 100 tips for every part of your home. So let's check this out. So the website aarp.org/yourhome takes you to the free AARP HomeFit guide. It's 36 pages. It's got lots of pictures. It's a room by room guide that, again, gives you over 100 tips for helping you to live more safely and comfortably in your existing home. And the HomeFit guide is about creating a lifelong home for people, no matter their age or their life stage. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you can get this either digitally that you can print off on your own, or there is a way that you can mail away and have it sent to your house, so you can have a hard copy yourself. So I want to draw attention to the little price tag stickers. These are going to show up throughout the next few slides, and you're going to notice that we'll have two different ones. So the single price tag icon is going to represent something that is more do-it-yourself, a little quick fix, more cost-effective way to increase livability in your home. And then when you see two price tags, that's going to represent that maybe that task is something that you would hire a professional, or it might be something that's a little bit more difficult to do. It might be more costly, and it probably will require more planning. I always say that sometimes I think my own brain would consider a lot more things double price tag than single price tag, because I'm not personally a handy person. So I would probably call a contractor for a lot more than maybe my neighbor down the street who feels a little bit more handy. So these icons are going to help you with planning and understanding the feasibility of some of the HomeFit fixes that we're going to show you. So be sure to look for them. They're in the top corner of the slides. Okay, so we're going to talk first about a few just general quick fixes to enhance safety and livability. And these are not unique to any specific room in your house. So smoke detectors and CO2 detectors, we are all familiar with that annoying chirp of a smoke detector, and the batteries need to be changed. But smoke detectors are a must-have. They have changed a lot over the years, and now they're generally hardwired battery-free versions, or some that have a really extended 10-year battery. So you don't have to change it every 6 months like maybe you did when daylight saving time changed. You changed the batteries. So they're newer, they cost a little bit more, but they are more reliable. And there are also some smoke detectors that not only are smoke detectors, but they also do the CO2 detection, the carbon monoxide. So maybe you get one instead of having to get two separate detectors. And so it could be a little bit more expensive, but it's important because any home with a fuel burning appliance, a fireplace, or an attached garage, you need to have at least one carbon monoxide detector on every level, especially near bedrooms. So basement, first floor, second floor, however many levels you have. The CO2 detectors come in battery powered, some come in that they plug right into the wall, and then there's others that are hardwired versions. Again, some of them are both a smoke detector and a CO2 detector. They should be placed either 5 feet from the ground or a few feet below the ceiling. Okay, so those are just a few things about smoke detectors and CO2 detectors. Next up, we're going to talk about fire extinguishers and water heaters. All right, so the kitchen needs what's called an ABC rated fire extinguisher that's stored in a really easy to reach spot. I know a lot of people often keep them under their sink, but sometimes that's the hardest thing to get to because it's not very close. Maybe your sink isn't close to your stove. So you want to kind of think about where you're going to use it and where you can most easily access it. And they are usually pretty lightweight, so they're not super heavy that you would have to move it all the time if it's in your way. So you want to make sure, again, it's lightweight, multi-purpose fire extinguisher in an accessible location throughout your home. And once a year, you should have your fire extinguishers inspected to make sure that they are fully charged and functional. You can contact your local fire department to find out where you can have that inspected if you're not sure. There might be some private companies in your area, but the fire department will be able to direct you to the right person. And then there's your water heater. In general, it's recommended to set your water heater to 120 degrees Fahrenheit or less to prevent scalding. So there's even some health experts that say people with health conditions use a setting of 140 degrees to reduce the exposure to bacteria. But you kind of want to make sure, especially if you have sensitive hands or you don't have as good of feeling in your fingers, those hotter temperatures are going to be harder to detect and you're going to be more quickly burned. So you want to make sure that you're really thinking about that when you set the water temperature on your water heater. A second line of defense in scalding is to make sure that your shower valves are pressure balanced. This means that the cold water won't flow away from the shower when a toilet is flushed, and a plumber can help you fix this. So these are just a couple of quick things to think about with your fire extinguisher and your water heater in your house. The last two quick fixes we're going to talk about are throw rugs and step stools. So trip hazards are a real concern in our home. Trip hazards like throw rugs should be removed and replaced with slip-resistant mats. So you'll see in this picture of the stove with that braided rug. Those are very typical. A lot of people have those in their house, but those are very easy to slip on. They've replaced it here with one of those cushioned mats. They're like a gel cushion. Not only is it more comfortable to stand on, in my opinion, but it's also got a grippy bottom, so it's not going to slide if you take a step onto it. It's not going to slide out from under your feet. You also want to make sure that if it's not something that's a grip, it's got double-sided tape that it kind of grips to the floor, because I know some people have used the like shelf liner that's like tacky and it looks like little bubbles. But that stuff tends to disintegrate over time, and that actually makes it more slippery. So it turns into like a fine powder, and then you step on the rug and it goes flying 5 feet with you on top of it. So then we're going to talk about step stools. So they might be dangerous, but sometimes step stools are needed around the house for reaching those higher shelves or those tough to get to closet spaces. You want to make sure you get one that has a handle and a non-slip surface again. This little foldable one might be very convenient because it folds flat and you can stick it in a cabinet and nobody even knows you have it. But it's not as safe. Number one, it's a little bit more collapsible. It's less of a surface for your foot to be on. There's nothing for you to hold on to. It's not a grippy surface. So this one with the handle is a much safer option. All right, so now that we've gotten those quick fixes that most of them had the little one price tag in the corner, if you noticed, we're going to move on to the exterior of the home. So whether a residence is a house or an apartment, the exterior should be free of clutter, protected from the elements, well lit, and have an accessible entrance. And let's learn a little bit more about HomeFit exteriors. So the first thing we want to talk about is your address numbers. You want to have those as visible as possible. Those will help the delivery people as much as they will help the first responders. Those are the most important people, those first responders. You want them to be able to find your home easily, have a number that's easily displayed that you can see from the street, because if your house is kind of set back, you want to make sure that somebody can see that. So maybe having something on your mailbox at the street and then also on your house. Illuminated numbers, or those that are like that shiny reflective glow in the dark, those are also really good because they're more visible at night. And you want to choose, if you're going to have a doormat, you want to choose a solid, heavy one that's not going to blow away or curl up at the edge so somebody could trip on it. The one that they have here at this door is pretty sturdy, pretty thick. You just want to make sure that it's not going to create more of a tripping hazard too. So just make sure it's something that's really going to stay on the surface. And then lastly, outdoor lighting is a must for safety reasons. It's very helpful to have an outdoor light That's a height that doesn't require a ladder to change, so that anybody can change your light bulbs. You know, sometimes you put those overhead lights and you need a ladder that's way taller than you are and an extension of your arm just to change the light bulb. So if you can have one that's a little bit more in line with the height of the door, maybe that's a little bit safer too. Next, we're going to talk about the entryway. So first you want to see that there is this overhang over the front door. The best case scenario is to have an exterior overhang over the door that you go into. That's going to protect you from the rain, the snow, the sun. Might even be a little covering for a porch if you have a chair, if you have room for sitting. A contractor can definitely help with this. Is one of those pay someone else or a little harder to do. It's got the double price tags there in the corner. And next you want to check out your doorways. So if you want to take notes here, this is a good thing to take note of, but it's also in the HomeFit guide. The ideal width of your door is 32 to 36 inches. 32 to 36 inches is going to allow for a wheelchair to pass through. Not saying that you're ever going to need a wheelchair, but if it's something that if you want to stay in your house as long as you possibly can, that's the width, the ideal width that you want for your door. And the ideal height for a door is at least 80 inches. Now, zero-step entries, those are the best because those are what's called universally accessible. A zero-step entrance means there is nothing to lift your foot up over. There is nothing to lift a wheel up over. There is nothing to lift a walker up over. It's a smooth landing that goes right into the door. So ideally, each home would have at least one zero-step entry. This does not have to be the front door. Some people just kind of automatically assume that they have to have that zero-step entry be the front door. But if that doesn't work in your house, you can always think of another entryway that might be easier to make that happen. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to ramps. So a zero-step entry can sometimes be created with landscaping by adding some sloping pathways. That's definitely something you want to hire a professional landscape architect. So that is not just a person who mows your lawn. That is somebody who is a landscape architect. They know the proper grading of the soil. They know the angles they can get at. So that is definitely something you want to look into a professional doing for you. And that's also going to depend on how much space you have in the front yard, how much actual landscape you have to work with. You can consult with a contractor or even an occupational therapist to discuss options that might work best for you, even if landscaping does not help with your door. Swing clear hinges, and I am so glad that we have a video of this because sometimes I try to explain it with my hands and it's just not. So sometimes your door is going to be just an inch or two too small. What a swing clear hinge does is it actually gives you back some of that space. So it gives you back basically the width of your, or not the width, the depth of your door. And doors can be 1.5 to 2 inches, depending on the door, thick. And so that's going to give you that space back when you get a swing clear hinge put in. I will point out that this is one of those slides that has one little price tag on it, probably because swing clear hinges don't cost a lot of money, but I myself would not want to do this myself. I would not want to install these because I feel like I would install them backwards and then I'd be having to redo it and it would be a whole problem. But a swing clear hinge, basically what it does is opens the door away from the door frame itself. So what about the rest of the door? We're looking at entryway doors. So we're going to talk about peepholes. Those can help with a homeowner who's outside before they get to the door. I know we also have some people have smart homes where they might have a doorbell that has a video that goes right to their phone or inside. It's just nice and a good safety precaution to know who's coming to your door ahead of time, right? In this other picture here, a lever style handle is the easiest type of handle to open. So we have more power in our arm to press down on a lever than we do to grip a doorknob. So that is why we recommend the lever style door handle rather than the knob, because it sometimes is a little more wrist strength, a little bit more grip strength, whereas the lever, you can even do that with zero hand. You can use your elbow or something like that. A doorknob lock isn't the best choice for an exterior door because it's very easy to accidentally lock yourself outside, which is a safety concern. So for the most security, a keyed door lock should be separate from the door handle. A deadbolt or a cylinder lock is a strong device for securing a door. So we have those up here. Now notice this door handle is not the lever style. So we would want to have a lever style and then the deadbolt above it. And then lastly, we have those chains and the locks for the interior of the door. That just allows you a little bit more security so you can open the door just a little bit and maybe have a conversation with someone before you open the door all the way. All right, now we're going to talk about steps. So if you do have steps and you don't have the ability to make a 0-step entry, you have steps, they should be well lit, free from obstructions, and preferably have railings on both sides. The railings you want to extend beyond the last step. That will ensure for a safer transition from the bottom step to the final surface, the sidewalk or the driveway, whatever it is. So you want the handles to go a little bit further than that, so you have something to still hold on to all the way down. Now this picture here, these are considered walker steps. So walker steps are, they have a deeper tread, so the depth of it is deeper, enough to fit a walker on top of it. And then they have shorter rises, so they're not a big step up. So it's deeper and shorter. And those allow someone with a walker or even somebody who's using a cane or a hemi walker on the side, they can use the steps a little bit more safely. It allows you to put the walker and both of your feet right there. Walker steps can be a good alternative to ramps, which we're going to talk about in the next slide. But obviously, I'm going to tell you that walker steps are not the most accessible for a wheelchair user. And this picture here, I do want to point out something that stands out to my own personal eye is that the wood kind of, first glance, you might look at it, if you have a little issue with depth perception, it looks like it could be a ramp, right? So putting a nice brightly colored tape at the end of each step might help you identify where that step itself is. So that would be my own little additive there. Okay, so now we're going to talk about ramps. Ramps are something that I really like to talk about a lot, so I'm going to try and keep it brief so that we keep getting through the rest of the content, but I could talk about ramps for an entire hour myself. So ramps can be either permanent or temporary fixtures to the home. A permanent ramp, such as this wooden one here, with the pretty railings, that can be added to an entrance by a contractor or a professional. While temporary ramps like this one in the center here, those are usually a good solution for people who don't want to permanently modify their home. So maybe you have a temporary need for a wheelchair or a walker, and the stairs are going to be difficult, but it's just going to be temporary, maybe 6 months after a surgery or something like that. A temporary ramp would do fine. They're usually like a modular system, so they can, easily be installed and then easily be taken away. Again, the other thing is you want to think about, well, we'll think about that in a second. Let me get to the last type, the threshold ramp. See, I could talk about ramps for hours. The threshold ramp is if you have a very small distance to cover. So you'll see in this picture here, there's maybe about 2 to 3 inches of a lip between the sidewalk itself and that door frame. So this threshold ramp basically just is a wedge that covers that distance. So it's not permanent. It's usually a pretty thick, heavy mat, almost like a welcome mat, but a little bit heavier, so it's not going to move on you. And that can be taken away or put down whenever you need it. So you want to also keep in mind that, like with the 0-step entry, a ramp doesn't need to be in the front of the house. It doesn't have to be at the front door. I've seen some beautiful ramps put into people's garages because that's where they had the space. And they had a 2-car garage and they only had 1 car. So one bay of the garage had the ramp. And that worked out beautifully. There's definitely a lot of things to consider when you're thinking about putting a ramp in at your house. So it's definitely a good idea to consult with a professional for this. So it could be a contractor, an aging in place specialist, an occupational therapist. You know, you've probably seen on people's houses ramps that have what's called a switchback, where they kind of turn and turn. That's because they might not have enough space to cover the height that they need for the ramp. I'm seeing that there might be some things in the chat. Kara, do we need to take a question break at all?
I think we're good for now.
Okay. All right, so then we're going to move on to this one should have 3 price tags because vertical platform lifts are pretty expensive, but they are a great alternative. So if you think about it, what if you don't have room for a ramp? You know, the rise to ramp ratio is 12 inches to 1 foot. So for every, or 1 inch to 1 foot. So for every inch of rise, you need a foot of ramp. If you have a really small yard, you might not be able to do that. And in this particular case, it looks like the person goes into the 2nd story of their house, which might be the livable floor. And that's going to be a really big ramp with a lot of switchbacks. So a vertical platform is essentially an elevator for your house. They can be either inside, outside. Some people have them in their garage or out on a deck. They all come with a lot of safety precautions, that so you're not going to ever get stuck mid trip. There's, you know, manual hand cranks that can be used if the power goes out while you're on it. There's also usually cold weather packages that it comes with, or a canopy for the inclement weather. This is definitely something that is installed by a professional. They need to be a licensed elevator professional. So that's somebody that you would have to consult with for that. All right, so we're moving inside the house now.
Okay, now we can move to the 2 questions.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
what are the 2 questions?
Good. So one was very simple. And again, I'm just trying to find it where it went to how can you make sure that the contractor can install a proper ramp?
Okay, so there are very specific codes for ramps. You know, like I said, the inch to 1 foot ratio is pretty standard, but you know, you're going to have your codes that the builders and contractors have to follow. But what you want to think about, even if before you call the contractor, if you want to just do a little measurement of how high the door to the ground is, that's going to give you an idea, a pretty close idea of how long your ramp has to be. And I would definitely go with a contractor who has done ramps before. Maybe go through somebody that you know has a ramp, that ask them for their opinion of some contractors. There's some really good tips about hiring contractors in the HomeFit guide as well.
Good. And now another question also about ramps is, can you get temporary ramps, rent temporary ramps, or do you have to buy them?
You know, a lot of companies do a rent to own or just a strict rental. There's, you know, that's going to vary by where you are location wise. Usually it's like a medical supply company. I know around my area here in Massachusetts, we have a lot of medical supply companies that rent out ramps, and they will do them on a temporary basis. Or if you think you are going to need it in the long term, you can do a rent to own usually.
Okay, and someone talked about how in Florida there's help for getting ramps installed and also shower chairs. So would you say that every state has an agency that might help provide funding or might facilitate easier access to these things?
Sure. I would personally start with your council on aging or your senior center. or your area agency on aging, depending on where you live. Every state kind of has a little bit of a different setup with those different agencies, but something that kind of is in the theme of a council on aging, they can usually guide you to those like home improvement type of grants or loan programs. And even sometimes the companies themselves might know what funding opportunities might be out there.
Good. And then this is going back to one of the original slides where you talked about the cost of private duty home health aides.
Yes.
What did you say that was?
The cost itself,
Yes.
I want to say it was like in the 6,000s or
Yeah. Per month, I think it was like,
yes, it was per month and it's for roughly 30 hours a week. Yes, it's $6,000 a month. And again, that's the national average. So if you go to the Genworth, GENWORTH.com, there's a whole cost of care calculator that you can plug in like your zip code and it will give you a regional cost.
okay, good. Now you can go on.
All right, no problem. Let's see. All right, we're in the kitchen, my favorite room in the house. So we all know that residents and guests tend to congregate in the kitchen unless they are banished by the household chef. But even in the most welcoming kitchen, they have their hazards. So we're going to take a look at how to make your kitchen safer. Some quick fixes here. You'll notice the one price tag in the corner. Modifying your current space so that you don't have to redo the entire kitchen is a really cost-effective way to extend the lifespan of your kitchen design. So storing pots and pans in drawers or on open shelves might make them easier to locate and grab. You'll see the gentleman here in the wheelchair is reaching down into a drawer to get the pots and pans rather than, I know some people keep them in a cabinet that you have to kind of bend down and reach way back to get the pots in the back. And that's always the pot you need, the one that's in the back. So having them in a little bit more of an accessible space is going to make you a little bit safer. And then much like the lever handle is the optimal type of handle for a door, we like to call these D-shaped handles in this on the cabinet here and also on these drawers. D-shaped handles are the most universal for opening drawers and cabinets. And that's again, because you can kind of stick your hand, you don't have a lot of grips, have to have a lot of grip strength to just stick your hand and then use the strength of the bigger muscles in your arm to pull that drawer or cabinet door open. So that's why that makes those easier to open and close. And then again, placing those cushioned slip resistant floor mats by the sink and the stove that can not only improve your safety, but it's also more comfortable to stand on. Sometimes we have tiled floors in the kitchen and that can be a little fatiguing when you're standing and doing your meal prep. So rethinking the space that you have, maybe standing at the counter, like I just said, to prepare your food might be too taxing. So perhaps you have a small kitchen table or a counter height that you can sit a chair at so that you can work while you're sitting instead of standing. Some of these things are going to be a little more of the harder to do's. So they might be something you look for a professional to do, or maybe somebody who's a little bit more handy than yourself. Some modifications are going to need the help of a professional, like cabinet and shelf changes. So adding a lazy Susan to a corner cabinet, depending on, your level of skill, might be something you can do. I would hire someone, but that can make pots and pans and bowls more accessible because it spins and you can kind of get things all from the same height, but it's also saving some space as well. Adding in some lower level cabinets with pull-out shelves or open shelving, that can make it more easy to access all of those things. The pull-out shelving is really nice if you have really deep cabinetry. Cabinets that cover the entire top of the fridge, like the out of the reach storage, right? I always just put things that I very rarely use up there. My Thanksgiving dishes are up there because I use them literally once a year. So you want to put things that you're not using in those cabinets that you're having more difficulty with accessing. and keeping the things that you do use very handy. And then also changing to lever style, light touch, or sensor faucets will make your sink easier to use, and they're actually more sanitary as well. I do also want to point out this beautiful extra workspace that somebody had installed in this kitchen. This is something I would have a professional do for sure. And again, it's one of those more pricey items, but if you have means to have something slide out like that, you can sit there or stand there to work at that surface. Okay, the bathroom. So sometimes we pay more attention to decorating our bathrooms than to making them more safe, and that is a little bit of a mistake. The bathroom is probably one of the more dangerous rooms in the house. It's definitely more of a painful and potentially life-threatening place to fall because there's a lot of hard surfaces. Your floor is hard, your toilet, countertop, there's a bathtub. So we're gonna see some safe and attractive ways to improve your bathroom. There's a couple of easy DIY fixes that you can do in your bathroom makeover. Again, slippery place, rugs or mats you're going to want to have that rubber backing non-slip mat. You don't want to have the cutesy little rug, the braided rug. You want to have something with a good gripping surface. And you want to also place those non-skid strips on the surface of the tub or the shower. I like the strips because they don't get as slimy. You know how sometimes the mats that you can put in the bottom of the tub, they get a little bit of a film on them. The grip strips stay a little bit more grippy. Using motion sensor lighting, that can really help you. That's always something I'm preaching to people. Get those motion sensor night lights, put them all over your house. They only turn on when you walk by them or you walk near them. So it's not like it's going to keep you up at night. Having one in the bathroom for sure, because that might be a place that you go in the middle of the night in the dark. You'll see here over the toilet, there's a commode chair. That is a 3-in-1 commode. Can be right over the toilet. It can also, if getting to the bathroom is a long trip for you in the middle of the night, it can also be a bedside commode. They also provide armrests here, which makes it a little easier to get up from a lower toilet. So these are pretty inexpensive, depending on your own medical needs. You may get it covered by insurance, but this is something that is also on the relatively inexpensive side and can be found pretty frequently all over the place. These benches here, this is called a transfer tub bench. This is a non-permanent way to sit in the shower or get in and out of the shower if you are a wheelchair user. So basically you sit on the edge here on the outside of the tub and you swing your legs in and then kind of scoot your bottom over to the inside of the tub. A lot of people do get concerned about water with this type of a chair, but you can really kind of tuck and angle your shower curtains in so that the water does not become a problem on the floor. And one other thing I want to point out in this bathroom here is the handheld shower. So when you're sitting to shower, it's really a good idea to have a handheld shower, because if not, the water is just the fixed shower head is coming right at your face the whole time. And it's really hard to you have to maneuver your body a lot to rinse all the soap off of your body. So a handheld shower is really key if you're going to be sitting while you're in the shower. All right, and so these are some of the harder to-dos where you might want to get a professional. A comfort height toilet is the best option for a wheelchair user, just because of the transfer height from the chair to the toilet itself. It's not necessarily the greatest thing for people who are on the shorter side, and obviously children are going to have a harder time getting up there. But one solution is to have a bathroom with a regular toilet and then have another one with a comfort height toilet. Or you can use some of those more temporary solutions like the commode over the seat, which can be moved between users, or they have, just handles that you can put on. There's a whole variety of things for the toilet. This little gadget here underneath the toilet, if you don't want to buy a whole new toilet, this is called a toilevator. It's a toilet toilet base riser. It's usually less than $100, and it just kind of goes underneath your toilet. Again, having a plumber put this in so that you have all the right sealing of the plumbing is definitely key. And then there's the height of the sink. So a 36-inch high sink base and vanity is ideal and requires less bending. Now you want to think about if you have a wheelchair user in your house and they're sitting to get under that sink. This sink over here is ideal because there's a cutout so that you can pull the wheelchair right up to the sink and the person's legs can be underneath and they can reach the sink, brush their teeth, wash their face, wash their hands, whatever they need to do. Thinking about the shower. So a wide doorless shower with a 0-step entry is definitely going to be the most accessible for everybody, the most universal shower entry for all people. But other options could be a full swing shower door that opens all the way so you have plenty of space to get in. Or a partial wall that has like kind of the back entrance you can get in. And then where the water is coming down, there's a wall, or shower curtains. Shower curtains for a shower are going to be more accessible than a sliding glass door. And additionally, a permanent seat or a shower bench could be a nice safety feature for people. Additionally, there are adjustable handheld shower heads, like I mentioned in the last slide. Those are going to be really, honestly, I have one in my shower and I don't sit during the shower, but it's just nice to be able to control where that water is going. And we have a couple of shower options here that we just talked about. So there's the doorless wide shower that has the 0-step entry. You just kind of roll right in, no door at all. Or you can put, a shower curtain here so that it keeps the water in the shower. And then this seat here. So you want to make sure the seat that you're getting in the shower is wide enough and deep enough for the person's backside, because some of the seats that I've seen in a few showers that are built in are really tiny. So you want to make sure that when you're shopping around for shower options, that you get something that's going to be a good, comfortable seat for whoever the person is that's going to be using it. So try these things out before you go spending the money, especially because this is more of a heavier cost. So bathroom grab bars. Grab bars used to be that they just used to be those ugly things that looked very hospital, very medical, right? But you'll see here all the 3 green check marks are all actual grab bars. They are supported in the wall, which is why we have those 2 price tag stickers there. You want to have a grab bar professionally installed because they need to be installed correctly in order to hold all of your weight and be used as a grab bar and not just a soap dish or a toilet paper holder. So they do need to be supported, installed into supportive blocking, and honestly, that is best done by a professional rather than, just the kid down the street. Keep in mind that these red X's here, these are sold as grab bars, or sometimes they're seen as what's called an assist bar, but they are not safe. This one here, you kind of screw it on to the outside of your tub. And then this one over here is a suction cup. And I don't want anybody to ever have to feel like they're putting their whole weight on a suction cup. That just is not the safest option. So going with something that is, again, none of these look like those medical grab bars that you see in a hospital. They're fashionable and functional. All right, living spaces. So sometimes we have guests and we want to make sure the living spaces are safe and comfortable for everyone. Lighting is really important. You want to use natural light as much as possible during the day. Open the blinds, brighten the room. Plug in night lights. Again, I mentioned those earlier when we were talking about the bathroom. Considering some battery operated dusk to dawn or motion sensor night lights in the hallways, near steps, near staircases, in your bedroom, maybe right when you get out of the bed, maybe there's a sensor down on the floor that you can that turns on when you put your feet on the floor. Placing plug-in nightlights in unused outlets throughout your home can just increase your safety. And then these are a little bit more harder to do lighting things. So the ideal universal design for a light switch is this rocker design. Again, you can just kind of hit it with your hand or your elbow or your arm. You don't have to have the dexterity or the fine motor control to flip the switch. Light switches that glow in the dark are really nice because then you can find it in the middle of the night to turn it on, right? And then adding wall sconces near the bedding, that makes it a lot easier to turn on the light before having to walk across the room to flip a switch to turn on the light. If you do have plugs around your house, just make sure that all the wires and cords are tacked down to the floor or the wall so that they're not a tripping hazard as well. Hallways and stairways, so those can be a little tricky as well. You want to make sure that you have at least 36 inches of passing space in hallways and in stairwells so that people can use them safely. If the stairs are uncarpeted, you want to add non-slip surfaces like these adhesive strips, but you want to make sure they're secure on the step. And you definitely don't want to leave things on your stairs. Don't be the person who leaves a trail of shoes up the staircase like some of my children have in the past. This is definitely a harder to do. The stair glide or the stair elevator, stair lift, that is going to be something that a professional needs to install, but it can be a really great idea if you have your bedroom and bathroom on the second floor and just your kitchen and your regular living space on the first floor, and you don't even have a bathroom. So you need to be able to get up and down those stairs safely. This can be a great alternative. The one thing I want to talk about here is if you do utilize an assistive device like a walker, a cane, or a wheelchair, you want to have one on each floor so that you can use it when you get up to the top, and you can also use one when you get down to the bottom. Again, this has to be done by a professional. You'll notice also that elevators is in here. There are definitely some people who have elevators in their home that would need to be installed by a professional elevator person, a technician. I did home care for years and I definitely saw a few elevators in my time. Putting carpeting on the stairs can make them a little bit safer as well if you have a very slippery wood stairs as well. And again, that's something a professional can do for you. All right. So this slide here, just something to keep in your mind. All the quick fixes that we saw throughout the presentation, and you're going to get a copy of it in a few days from Kara. Just find a few that you can do in the next couple of months, and then use the HomeFit Your Home handout to kind of go through your house and check off some things that you can do and plan for the future. Think about who those people are that can help you as well. These are the links for finding your HomeFit guide. And there's actually also an app available in the Apple Store for HomeFit. So I would like to answer some questions before we end. Kara, do we have questions?
We actually do not. Some
Really?
people have
Okay.
been making some nice suggestions in the chat, so I will send out the chat file afterwards as well. So I think what we're looking at is a good hour, and we're just about done with it. And I expect I'll be able to send everything out tomorrow. So look forward to all the materials, and I'll add some of the links in the email as well as send the slides. So I think we're in good shape, Andrea. Hopefully
Great.
you've motivated some people, and the idea is to be proactive as much as possible, right?
Yes, yes.
Excellent.
Thank
Well,
you, everyone.
thanks for the feedback, and don't forget to fill out the survey when you get the email as well. Have a good day, good rest of the day, folks. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks, Andrea.
Yes.
Bye.